So it looks like the Bitcoin bears were wrong. Only 2 days into the monthly candle and we're bouncing from a super important level of support, and the S&P 500 is starting to delete all of its losses from the most recent dump. And Bitcoin is also about to send a huge long signal. We're going to talk about that long in just a moment. We're going to talk about the charts, price targets in more detail, but first, let's roll the clips, let's talk about the news, and we'll dive into the charts right afterwards. Everything is going to be timestamped below as always, so if you want to skip the news segments, go ahead. But if you want to stay in the know, then be sure to stick around and I'll see you right after.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for the American customers.
Project Stargate.
It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
This is the automobile industry, and now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to make these bigger investments.
It's another example of the Trump effect.
GE Aerospace announcing a nearly $1 billion investment into American manufacturing.
Eli Lilly announcing plans to expand its manufacturing here in the United States.
$27 billion additional spend, bringing our total to more than $50 billion.
The money's rolling in, and this is in the past 60 some odd days, Charles.
These are deep-pocketed folks who want to have a relationship, and it's just smart moves.
We are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. Today, we are investing $20 billion.
Foreign leaders from around the world, investors from Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Main Street have confidence again in our economy and our markets and in President Trump.
The Trump effect this morning, a string of massive wins for American manufacturing. The numbers speak for themselves. Wisconsin-based Clarios is putting up $6 billion to expand its American operation. And what's driving these decisions? Well, President Trump's aggressive Made in America policies and his commitment to bringing industry back to American soil. This is exactly what Trump promised. America First is back.
So some incredible news going on at this moment in time. The Trump economy is moving fast. Additionally, outside of this little news segment, we also had Israel dropping all of its tariffs on the US as of yesterday. Some of these tariffs were up as high as 200%, but despite this, which is, definitely good news from both sides, there's still so much more room to grow. Europeans, Canada still has tariffs. China has tariffs up to 1,000% on the US. And there's going to be so much more potential for these markets to rebound higher once these all get sorted. And because a lot of retail only understand that the price goes up or the price goes down, they don't understand the bigger picture, you can see this transpire into the economic policy uncertainty index over on Bloomberg, which is now at all-time highs absolute skyrocket as retail has no idea what's going on. They don't understand the economic policies. They don't understand anything else other than price go up or price go down. You don't just have to take my word for it or use the charts that I use. There's tons of other people across the board covering this, and yeah, there's massive uncertainty right now. The retail is not in the know, but the insiders, the smart traders, people who understand what's going on in the background, they're having the best setups in this market at this moment in time. If you want to take one step closer to being in the know, obviously make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn notifications on, and also follow me over on Twitter at 618_cowboy to get charts and updates between the videos. So basically, since all of the news of this tariffs and economic policy uncertainty have started to arise, we've seen the markets price in the worst case situation based on this. And now we're finally starting to see good news come out. Like we've mentioned on the videos, we've talked about lots of different charts, policies, and talking about how the transition phase between presidencies takes time, and economic policies, you don't just change the tariffs and boom, overnight everything's peachy. These policies take time to actually have an important effect on the economy. But we've been following the smart money, we've been looking at what they've been doing, and we've been talking about these transition periods. You can see literally only last week we were talking about how the corporate insiders were buying the low, and we said they don't always buy the exact bottom, they don't always sell the exact top, but they know more than us. They have a lot of insider trading going on. They know stuff that we don't know. And if you're following what they're doing, 95% of the time, you're going to be successful. 2 weeks ago, they didn't buy the exact bottom, but they bought within a few percent of the bottom, and they are already laughing as the price is starting to recover. And once we see more positive news come around this, then not only are we going to probably on the S&P 500 have to retrace back all the way to the top to the all-time highs, about a 9% move for the S&P 500, probably about a 30% move to the upside for Bitcoin, but we're probably going to price higher considering how things are looking up from the previous peak. Over on the S&P 500, moving on to the daily time frame, you can see the exact range that we talked about that we really needed to get above, how we need to start seeing closes above this, and how we need to get above approximately 5,655 to start to see a major push back up to the upside. And we've already seen it today. We've had a nice rally back up to 5.7, retraced a little bit of those gains in the lower time frames, looking like we're coming down to retest this support box one more time. Hopefully this time it gets flipped and we continue to push back up to the upside, but things are definitely looking a lot stronger. We talked about how this box over here is neutral territory in previous videos. Above it is bullish territory, and it looks like we're only just starting to see the tip of the iceberg for a major reversal. I think a lot of traders, a lot of crypto people specifically, have very short-term recency bias, so they don't necessarily remember that we've had a big correction. They only see the price go up today. But remember, there's a lot of upside in this market. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is the confirmation that we're moving out of neutral territory and the lows are in for both Bitcoin and the S&P 500. I think things are really going to start looking up. I still want to see daily closes for the S&P 500 above 5,650. And then, of course, the next levels to look at are going to be around about 5.8K for the S&P 500. The charts that we talked about literally only in yesterday's video as well, talking about the VIX, how this was looking like this was rounding out and going to be the top. Looks like it panned out pretty well. We had a major wick back down to the downside on the VIX this morning, and once again we still have a lot more room to retrace, which is good news for the S&P 500 and also Bitcoin. Speaking of Bitcoin, lower time frames, let's start off with the lower time frames. 4 hour, you can see that we've absolutely exploded out of neutral territory, and we're coming up to the exact resistance that we highlighted next, between 87,500 up to 90,000. Anything above that is really full send it territory. But as you can see, after this bullish engulfing candle, we are clearly back. We retested the heart line where all of the volume was traded in the middle of this range. We retested this zone a little bit earlier on this morning, and we've been pushing up to the upside with this news that's been coming out in the market. So things are really, really starting to look up for Bitcoin. Of course, this is still the next area of resistance to keep your eyes on the kind of lower time frames, 4 hour or so. If we come over to the 15-minute time frame, there potentially could be an argument that we could be bull flagging. We don't really have kind of any solid data at this moment in time. It's still kind of early days, but potentially something like this to keep your eyes on. This may not develop into a bull flag. This may completely flop beneath it. We may break above without the need for some super long accumulation range within this kind of range, just above this resistance that we highlighted. Just an idea, but we're starting to set up some very nice patterns for Bitcoin. And once again, the next trade is pretty much right around the corner. Now, on the channel, a couple of videos ago, we basically talked about how I personally was going to be longing round about the 84K region. It is looking quite good for my long at this moment in time. However, like I mentioned, either way, I wasn't in a super huge position because I told you I was waiting to see one major confirmation, and that was a daily close above the 50 TMA, which is currently coming in at approximately 86,800. If we start getting daily closes above then, bear in mind, we'd want to see one daily close, then we'd want to see a retest, and then we'd want to make another close with hopefully kind of a candle pushing up. And then at that point, that's really kind of where myself personally, I'm going to be adding to the long that I've got down here at 84K. And I think that's a very safe entry for people who have been on the sidelines up until now, because, you know, sometimes when we look at these charts, sometimes it's cool to overcomplicate things. Sometimes the most simple charts that you look at, they tell you pretty much all you need to know. That's kind of what we were looking at yesterday. We were saying we need to get above this level, we need to back test it, we need to push higher. Boom. Simplest chart was kind of the most black and white, easy to follow strategy. When we're coming over to this chart as well, also super simple. There are two things that I'm looking at this moment in time, and sure, we can overcomplicate things in a second just for the sake of it, just for the shits and giggles, but basically you want to get above the 50 TMA. You want to start seeing closes at 86,800. You want to backtest it, because then at that point you're going to have a long confirmation above that zone, and that's going to give you, and that's going to give traders a lot more confidence that we're going to break out of this downtrending line of resistance, which has been in place since Bitcoin's all-time high at 109K. And the price targets that I personally would be keeping my eyes on for this breakout to the upside, we've talked about them before. I believe they're going to be round about 87 to 90,000. You have a 618 Fibonacci right here, 96,800, and you can also see secondary point of control just above this level after this point of control down here that we told you we needed to get above. So sometimes it's super simple. You know, we need to get above this as well. This level right here, also beautiful confluence with the levels that we just talked about right now. We can overcomplicate things. Once again, pull up EMA ribbons, pull up the Bollinger Bands. You can also see, that was the bull market support band, but you can also see, like we've been talking about in the video, there's going to be a bulk of resistance between where we are right now at the 50 TMA up to this downtrending line of resistance, correlating with kind of EMA ribbons, moving averages, bull market support bands, Bollinger Bands. There's a lot going on up until about kind of 88,300. We called it 90,000 before. I keep on re-saying that, but the price has obviously come down, the trend line's come down. So now the real area that you should be looking at for a breakout is potentially 90K psychological level, but really 88K is a major region, but for now you want to see those daily closes above 86,800. That's going to fire a major long signal. We've talked about the 50 TMA on this channel many times. We've statistically back tested all of the trading strategies over on Bloomberg terminals, and longing when you get confirmations from the 50 TMA is one of the strongest strategies that you can incorporate into your trading regime. So that's what I'm going to be doing, keeping things very simple, because you can look at the statistics, you can backtest different strategies. This is a simple one, but it is absolutely very effective. So that's what I'm looking at next for Bitcoin. I think that's going to carry into your Solanas, that's going to carry into your altcoins. You have to be quite conservative when it does come to altcoins though, because as you can see over here on the Bitcoin dominance is absolutely sending it to the upside. So for myself personally, like I've been talking about on the channel, as you know, my strategy this cycle is a lot different from my strategy the previous cycle. The previous cycle we were talking about lots of altcoins, lots of meme coins, diversified bags. At this moment in time, if you come over to my channel, all I'm really talking about is Bitcoin and Solana. I don't really give a shit about KDA. I don't really give a shit about all of these other altcoins that we've been talking about the previous bull run, because the previous bull run they were outperforming. This bull run, the Bitcoin dominance is absolutely in charge right now, and there's only a very select number of altcoins which in my opinion are going to outperform Bitcoin. I think Solana's going to be one of those, so my bags are really pretty simple right now. The majority of them are in Bitcoin, the rest of it is in stake Solana, with a couple of small plays on kind of SPL tokens on the Solana ecosystem. Apart from that, I don't really care. That's all I'm looking at this moment in time. So be very careful when you're talking about altcoin season, or, you know, I've even got kind of normie friends talking to me about Ethereum and XRP, and it just absolutely is kind of like a, you know, doesn't necessarily look good. I personally don't think altcoins are going to do as well as the previous bull run. I've said this multiple times in so many videos recently. The Bitcoin dominance is absolutely full sending it through, you know, previous resistance that we've talked about on this channel. And, you know, at some point we've played the devil's advocate on this channel. We've talked about, you know, potentially at some point we can see a push back down for an alt season, but I don't think it's going to be an alt season like we have seen in previous cycles. And hey, if we do start to see a reversal on the Bitcoin dominance, I would much rather hop in once there's some certainty, like here, round about these levels. Once you've got some clarity, okay, Bitcoin dominance is absolutely crashing now, altcoins are sending it. I'd much rather get in here than be that altcoin guy that was buying altcoins here and here and here and here and here all the way up. Because if you've been buying altcoins this cycle, apart from, you know, very select ones on like the pump.fun days when that was kind of going really crazy, then you haven't been doing too well with altcoins this cycle, unless you've picked them really well, like Solana, etc. For myself personally, I'd much rather stay away from altcoins. If we see kind of a trend change, if we really see Bitcoin kind of full send it up to kind of 120, 140k, and then I think there'd be a final push for altcoins, and we can talk about that in the future, then we can make a small pivot when the time is right. I don't think the time's right now. I don't think the time is right now. You're seeing a very clear picture on the Bitcoin dominance. Doesn't look like a time to enter alts, in my opinion, at this moment in time. So, want to wrap up the channel on the higher time frames very quickly and just remind you exactly where we are right now. Monthly time frame, Bitcoin has just closed a candle and it has refused to fall beneath this on the monthly time frame. The 1.236 Fibonacci, the extension from the previous bull run top in 2021, we have closed on this, and we're starting to see a return of a nice green candle to the upside. Monthly time frame again, just like we've done in every single cycle, when we break above the all-time high, we spend some time retesting it, everyone thinks it's game over. This kind of green box over here is where the parabola comes. You know, you have the start of the altcoin, you have the start of the bull run rather, you know, you push up. Once you get above the previous all-time high and you retest it, boom, that's when the parabola comes. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, we've just spent the past kind of 2 months or so coming back down to this previous all-time high from 2021, and we're just starting to see a push to the upside. So while a lot of people are excited about today's move, and of course I am myself, but I think this is the kind of bottom of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, whatever you want to call it, and I think this is really the start of a incredible move which is coming very soon. If we come over to the BLX as well, you can see we're exactly where we need to be for halfway through the cycle, probably a little bit more halfway through the cycle, having a correction after breaking above the all-time high. You can see break above the all-time high, correction, that's the parabola. Break above the all-time high, this was, I don't even know what happened back here, somewhat of a correction around the all-time high. It took like 4 or 5 months to get above the all-time high. So that's kind of where the accumulation took place. And then you see the parabola. Over here, you can see, you know, this was a little bit different. We were recovering from kind of a global pandemic at the time, but nonetheless, we back tested the all-time high. We had a parabola, kind of a premature market where we double topped over in this one, but we're in that phase right now. We've been trading around the all-time high. We've just back tested it. I think it's still very early days for the parabola up. And if we do come into contact with this kind of curvature line, which by the way has marked this cycle top, 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 and potentially the next cycle top, you can see these curvature lines, they do account for diminishing returns. So it's not just like a straight trend line, which is going to say this cycle we're going to 1 million. I think that's kind of out of pocket. So this is diminishing returns, and this would be suggesting kind of anywhere between 140 to kind of 150, 160,000 Bitcoin, depending on how long it takes to get there. So we're right where we need to be. Monthly time frame, cup and handle breakout. Over on the monthly time frame as well, if you want to draw it as a trend line, retested the previous all-time high trend line. This was resistance, 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 just flipping a support. Weekly time frame to wrap things off. We've bounced from the level that we told you we needed to hold, and we're starting to full send it up. This is kind of a beautiful ascending channel. Eventually, of course, the party's going to end. This is not going to just go up and up and up to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Eventually, something like this is going to happen, and we're probably going to end the cycle like that. It's not going to go up in a straight line forever. At some point, the party's going to end, but I don't think the party ends right here while we're bouncing from support, while we've held these super, super important levels. And ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up the video on one simple chart that you really want to keep your eyes on, it's going to be this one over here. We've got the all-time high, 110K. We've been in a very, very picturesque downtrend since then, and we're coming into contact with one of the most important moving averages, in my opinion, for traders, 50 TMA over on Bitcoin. Statistically, the best strategy to follow. As soon as we get a close above 86,800 approximately, and you start retesting it as support and pushing higher, that's going to be the confirmation that we're probably going to switch the trend. We're probably going to break out of this downtrend, and we're probably going to full send it to the upside. So that's all I've got for today. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment on the way out, turn notifications on. Also follow me over on Twitter at 618_cowboy. This market and the people who do well are really going to be the people who keep their eyes on the smart money and keep their eyes on the developments before things get priced in. If you want to be one of those people, do what I just said. See you in the next one. Hope to see you in the Discord between videos and over on Twitter. I'm out. Peace.